humans are designed to digest milk, their mother's milk. That's the milk you should be drinking.
We're out of milk.
Drink this.
It's a marketing push. It's a societal push of cow's milk. It's this dairy industry really driving this machine.
44% of Americans are lactose intolerant.
Wow.
Your body's giving you those signs saying, I'm not breaking this down very well.
I get comments quite a lot. I actually grew up on a dairy farm. Awkward. Now I'm vegan. But I get comments all the time that say like, well, how come humans developed over time then to be able to digest milk? That's what people say. They're like, well, if we say, well, it's for a baby cow, then people say, well, humans developed over time and now we can digest it. So it's obviously for us.
Just look at Japan. Japan as a nation, I always point to, that did not have milk for the entirety of their civilization. It was just introduced. And so really it's a marketing push. It's a societal push of cow's milk. It's this dairy industry really driving this machine. And if we're talking about gut health, if we're talking about a milk humans should be drinking, it's their mother's milk. And a massive percentage is not doing that past 6 months. And even when our daughter did hemp and soy and other milks, it was combined with other plant foods. It didn't make up anywhere near a significant portion of her diet by that time because she was already eating all these foods. We call her a little bean because she was mostly made up of beans. She loved chickpeas and pinto beans and black beans and all these great foods. So it's huge. I think if we can kind of get back to focusing, remember the caring about the little microbes. I mean, breast milk is key to that. So,
And after the natural weaning age of around, we can extend the weaning age to about 5 years old, let's say. After 5, we dramatically decrease those enzymes, that lactase enzyme that breaks down lactose, because human breast milk does also contain lactose. It's a milk sugar, but we decrease that lactase dramatically by the age of 5. So studies show about 44% of Americans are lactose intolerant. These Americans are just continuing to be like, no, it's okay. I don't mind the gas, the putrid gas, and I don't mind the bloating and the mucus production. Your body's giving you those signs saying, I'm not breaking this down very well. So if you're one of those 44, almost half of Americans who has those symptoms of lactose intolerance, it's literally your body saying, I'm not breaking this down well. Please stop giving me this thing. Maybe I could digest it when you were 3, but you're a different person now. So let's let it go.
I always see on the internet nowadays, right, especially with the political climate, like raw milk is the thing.
No, that's the big misconception there. Cow milk is cow breast milk that is there to transfer to the baby calf's gut microbiome, a distinctly unique microbiome from the human microbiome. So on top of that, breast milk we know is a medium of transfer of not just microbes, not just nutrients, but also hormones and other neurotransmitters and other things that is there to seed the baby. Just like human breast milk is there to transfer and seed the human baby, the bovine, the monkey, the dog milk is there to seed and transfer to that species of animal, which is very different from a human.
And I'll just say, when it comes to histamine in particular, with this claim that raw milk is better for you, when you are maintaining that bacteria that's in the raw milk, a lot of that, even we can call it natural or healthy bacteria, is histamine producing bacteria. So a lot of the lactobacillus strains that are naturally found in dairy, the strep thermophilus, we do have lots of these different strains that are going to be much higher in raw milk because it hasn't been pasteurized, that are more histamine producing. That's why so many people say, when I drink milk, I get really congested. That production of mucus is a histamine response. Or people will say, if you have a wet cough, avoid dairy, right? That's advice that's been given out for hundreds of years. Again, that's your immune system producing mucus to say, these histamines are irritating me. And that's going to be so much higher in raw milk.
Wow.
Your cells get tired after a while. That inflammation has a bigger impact. And this factors into this idea of reversal remission, right? The more damage you do long term, it's harder to get in that remission, right? So you may think like, oh, this dairy is not that big of a deal. My constipation here and there isn't that big of a deal. Take care of it while it's not that big of a deal, because your body gets tired. Your cellular energy and health, they're getting older as time goes on. So if you can eliminate bloating and gas. Those gases are highly inflammatory inside of your gut. They have to go somewhere. If you're not going to have flatulence, they're going to come out through your lungs and your breath. That's why we can do breath testing and test for certain gases in your breath. That's going to cause systemic inflammation in your body, again, albeit somewhat small, but over compound interest that, right? Compound the time on that, and that can be huge.
I think people are just accustomed to being uncomfortable after they eat, and they associate, well, I just get full, I just get bloated, like it just happens. That's a part of eating. But I think what you're trying to say is, actually, folks, that's a sign that something's not working correctly, and you should be listening to those signs.
Yes. And I was one of those people. I didn't even know I was one of those people until I met James, and he told me I was one of those people. I literally, we'd go out on a date and I'd be like, my stomach hurts. And he's like, do you realize you say that after every single meal that you eat? And I was like, no, actually I didn't.
Like, are you okay?
Yeah. Had let's talk.
The context that's very, very important, and why we're seeing some that are vegan or some that have given up dairy or plant-based, depending where you fall in that, who are like, I've given up dairy and I felt good for the first year or 6 months, and now I'm feeling off, and I did try raw milk and eggs or steak or whatever, and I felt so much better. Well, when you went vegan or plant-based, did you replace those microbes? Because a huge percentage of the only lactobacillus and healthy probiotics we get are from dairy. And yes, it's pasteurized here in the US, and then the microbes are added post pasteurization, whether that's yogurt or that's any form of dairy. And so you have to understand, even if you're vegan or plant-based, are you replacing those microbes? It's great you got rid of dairy. We are big fans of getting rid of dairy. That's wonderful. But are you still doing coconut kefir? Are you doing cashew yogurt with the probiotics? Are you doing kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi? And for most people, the answer is no. We have a gastroenterologist friend who's doing this research and showing it was very alarming. In her N of, I think she had an N of about 500, almost no one had lactobacillus or bifidobacteria in their stool samples, showing this massive, really disconnect from our food, first and foremost, but also this really deficit we're in when it comes to the microbes in our gut. And really what we say, if we're worried about any kind of ecosystem out there, we should be worried about the human gut ecosystem. That is the one that's being decimated. We're losing species after species in generation after generation, leading us to a point of going, I can no longer digest plants, and leading us to a point where we're going, we need to drink raw cow milk. Well, it's like, no, we're totally missing the mark there.
Let's say you are kind of aware that your gut health is not that good. Where would you start? Like, what foods would you actually start for people to just start with now? Because I think like people can get a bit overwhelmed.
I will say, regardless of what you have going on, if you're on the looser end, the more backed up end, one thing to really make sure is you're eating foods that are helping you have amazing bowel movements every day. Because unless you're doing that, you're not going to feel well. One food group that I would recommend is soluble fiber. People think fiber and they're like, let me pound the apples and the kale and celery, and I just need to sweep everything out of my gut.
Fiber supplements too.
Yeah, they'll take like psyllium husk that's super gloopy and thick. That's not always what's great for you, especially if you're constipated. Adding all of that insoluble fiber, that kind of broom type of fiber that just sweeps things through, is not always going to help, because if you're already pretty constipated, that just backs up behind your stool and then you're more bloated and more uncomfortable. So adding mop-like fiber, right? Because if you're cleaning the floor and you want to clean it really well, sure, sweep, but you need to mop, or else you're going to have lots of gross gunk stuck to the floor. So I recommend for anyone, no matter what they have going on with their gut, make sure you're eating enough soluble mop-type fiber that soaks up water, brings it directly into your colon, hydrates your stool, because soluble fiber is so cool. It can either hydrate a dehydrated, constipated stool and kind of help that, or it can really bind together a looser stool. So no matter what somebody has going on, I recommend eating starchy things like potatoes, especially ones that have been cooked and cooled down, rice that has been cooked and cooled down, green bananas. I love things like chia and kiwis and dragon fruit. Yeah, okra is a great one. So anything that you would soak that would expand with water is a great sign that it has soluble fiber in it, like beans and grains. Or anything that's kind of gooey when you eat it. So aloe and kiwi and okra and cactus, nopales. So any of those foods.
So top 3 food items for soluble fiber. You mentioned kiwis and a bunch of others, but if you had to whittle it down to 3, no pressure.
Kiwi, white rice, chia.